love this little fall day. I almost wore a sweater. It was exciting. I got to go through my sweater drawer. I'm going to talk today about being partnered with God. And where this comes from me is that Ernest Holmes, our founder, the founder of religious science, for many years he had a radio show, and he would always begin his radio show with this phrase, that there is a power for good in the universe and you can use it. So we're supposed to have access to and use this power. That means that we have to be in relationship with this power. And what, of course, that power is for us in the science of mind is God, spirit, divine intelligence, whatever you choose to call it. We say that God is a principle, a power, and a presence that's absolutely everywhere. But most importantly, it's within each and every one of us. It's within our own heart mind, our body mind, in the essence of our being. So partnered with God, here we are. Let's talk about this, that I believe for each of us, we are never alone. Because in the science of mind, what we believe is that God is everywhere, equally present. That means that there's as much God right where we are in the circumstances that we are evolving and healing through in our life right now. There's as much God, as much spirit, as much truth there as anywhere. It's just our job to remember it, to call it forth, to connect with it, to be a place where the truth comes forth in greater expression. You know, for us as students of New Thought, of the New Thought philosophies, we believe that God is bigger than any one religion. In fact, the way I like to say it is the reason that there are so many paths to God is it's because God's the only place to go. And eventually, I think people are going to figure that out. Frankly, people who don't believe in something greater, I find that really, really interesting. I think it's amazing that they're able to just get through life with any semblance of sanity at all. Now, I would say for me, I grew up in a home where I went to church. Church was a regular thing, a part of our life, and I really liked it. I mean, it stuck for me from a very, very early age. And my mother would always say to me, I don't understand what happened to John, your brother. That was our brother who absolutely hated church. And she said, why doesn't John like it as much as you do? And I don't know, I can't speak to him. I just know that I go to church and I really liked it. There was something in church, and honestly for me, my experience of church, it wasn't so much about what happened during the service. I like to sit in the church after the service. I like to sit because I felt like there was something more that was not being talked about. You know, something more than just the dribble that they were saying in the service. I knew there was something else. I just intuitively knew there was more. But nobody said it. Nobody could talk about it. And when I would ask about that, I would usually get smacked on the back of the head and said, nice girls don't ask those questions. Kind of put an end to my desire to what I was hoping to have a little dialogue about. So here in this church, we often talk about the teachings of Jesus, but we also talk about the Buddha and the Hinduism. Because what we know is that the teaching of New Thought and religious science certainly includes the teaching of Jesus, and yet it's also bigger than that. And why do I say that? I say because the principles that Ernest Holmes focused on, these principles, these universal spiritual themes, and that's what they are, they're universal. They're not something that just shows up in one teaching, in one place on the face of the earth. There are things, there are common spiritual denominators that Ernest Holmes pulled on from very, very different religions and teachings. So I'm interested in following those teachings in a deeper way, and Science of Mind has given me the vehicle to just do that. Jesus said a couple of things that to me are so important. He said that the Father and I are one. I and the Father, Mother, God are one. And he also said that the Father within you doeth the works. So for me, I'm interested in living from that kind of a place. Socrates said that the unexamined life is not worth living. And wonderful Julia Cameron, the author of The Artist's Way, said an unlived life is not worth examining. And I think that's even better, because I sure don't want to be that one person whose my life is mostly unlived. So I asked myself this morning, where do I shrink? Where do I hold back? Where do I play small? And where do I care too much about what other people are thinking? And where do I have that universal doubt that I'm not enough, and there's not enough, and I can't do it alone? And you know, the truth is, we don't have to have any of that. That's all learned behavior. We did not come in as a spiritual being carrying any kind of that kind of dialogue. That's all learned. That's something we picked up along the way. And if we picked it up along the way, we can set it down anytime. In fact, any time between now and right now would be the perfect time to let go of that kind of thinking. See, we teach in the science of mind that one with God is a majority. So that God puts opportunities in front of us, in front of each of us, to stand strong in the presence and in the knowing of truth, to rise to the occasion. Or the way I like to say it is, we get to be big for God. So if God and I were partnered, what would I really do here in this life with the person that I love the most? How would I be as a person who says, I practice forgiveness? If I was partnered with God, how would that be? How would I be in my compassion and my kindness out into the world if I really knew that I was in partnership with the divine in this way? See, if I believe that I'm partnered with God, I think that shows up in every area of our life. That, you know, my health is not my health. My health is something that I'm in partnership with God, co-creating on a daily basis. In fact, moment by moment and thought by thought. My relationships are something that I'm co-creating with Infinite Spirit all the time. My financial condition is something that I am in the process of creating with God all the time. If I were to just do it on my own, at some point I would just be so exhausted, wouldn't you? Like, oh God, I'm so tired. Can't I just hang out for a few minutes here? But the answer is no, no, no. This life is not a dress rehearsal. This is the performance. Right here, right now, this is it. We are right now in the life that we have been waiting to live. In Psalms, David wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." I think that's fundamental to how we're supposed to, well, certainly how I try and live my life. So years ago, I was at our national summer conference at Asilomar, and I had an appointment with a woman. Her name was Victoria Papke. And she had the honored distinction of being Ernest Holmes' practitioner after his wife Hazel passed on. And so I'm having this meeting with Victoria, and you know, I was just really miserable in a job that I had. And so what I did is what you do when you go to a practitioner. And I sat and I complained about my situation. And I complained with enormous feeling, because I really wanted to convince her how awful my situation was. And she, in this wonderful, kind way that she had, She just let me talk and talk and talk and talk. And finally, she just looked up at me and said, "Are you through yet, dear?" And I said, yeah. And she said, "Good, because I have something I want you to say the whole time that you're here at Asilomar." She said, "Every time you're tempted to think negatively about your job, or that you don't have the job that you want, or anything like that, what I want you to do and what I want you to say is, 'The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.'" Do you think you can do that? "Yeah, I think I can do that, yeah." And she said, "Good, I thought so. You seem like a fairly smart girl." So I went away and I thought, well, she seems to know what's going on here. I just may as well do what she says to do, right? Because clearly my way of doing things and doing it my way had not worked out for me so well. So I walked around the grounds of Asilomar all week long saying, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Now, mind you, this is up in the Monterey Peninsula at a state-run camp. And by the end of the week, I had 2 job offers, one of which I actually took. And it's where I worked for the next 3.5 years. So it absolutely worked, And why did it work? Because she had greater faith in the principle than I did. I was in a phase of my life where I was really growing my faith, but she really, really knew. So I could build my faith banking on her faith at the time. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And that's worked out really, really well for me all through my life. Living with God is, well, I guess I want God to be like the steering wheel, not the spare tire in my life. Because left to my own devices, humanly, I only know so much. But I know that there is a principle and a presence and a power within me that does know everything that I need to know. And if I will turn to it with some degree of regularity, with some consistency, it will reveal to me everything I need to know, everything I need to do, everything I need to be in any given situation. It's so often, I think, that when we hurt, when we can't control what's happening, that people start to look for a relationship with something spiritual. Many people come into Science of Mind because their life is in transition. There's been a big change. There's been a death. There's been a divorce. There's been a career change, what have you, And so people come to church. And what they want initially, they want for the pain to go away. I know I certainly do. But to just make the pain go away isn't actually going deep enough spiritually to get the real gift of the teaching. See, the pain can ease for us, but we haven't really fully come into the partnership with God, with Spirit, with divine wisdom and intelligence. People sometimes imagine that if they do the spiritual work, that's going to be like their bargain with God. Things are going to be easy for me because I do the spiritual work. In a word, That's not been my experience at all. That really is not. Because I think we're so busy avoiding those unpleasant things and keep trying to avoid them. But see, we have to understand the resistance is within us. And that resistance that's in us keeps us from moving to a new place, a healed place. So I want transformation, but I want it to be easy. That's easy. That's my story. I'd like everything to be easy. But most things worth having, it seems, are not easy. It's just not so. I want things to be easy. Humanly, I want them to be convenient. I want them to be comfortable. I want them to be just flowing smoothly. But that's not my experience for the spiritual path. Sometimes it is. And I'm thrilled when it is. But I know that the way that the universe seems to get my attention, the way it gets that most is through the things that are not always the most pleasant. You know, if I could, I would learn all the lessons that I'm learning in life by watching a beautiful sunset or holding a baby or getting a new puppy and all of those things that I really, really love. But in most cases, those things are not the best teaching opportunities for me. And as much as I love the sunset, my life doesn't usually change because of a glorious sunset. Now, when something happens in my life that really shakes me up, that really gets my attention. And it's like, okay, now I gotta look at what do I need to change? What needs to be different in me? I try to partner with God every day. And honestly, I fall short, you know? I remember, I do my spiritual practices in the morning. I have a myriad of ones that I can choose from. I meditate, I treat, I affirm, I read, I visualize, I journal. I have a big practice toolbox. And I do my practices. And yet I can be out 10 minutes after I've done my practice and walking my dog and forget that I just did a practice. I forget that I did my spiritual practices. So this morning, I did my spiritual practice. And I took my dog out for her walk, and out while we were walking, and this is just me, this is just probably nobody else here gets thrown by this and goes off the deep end. But I see other people who have walked their dogs and let's just say they've not been the responsible dog owner that I think everybody should be. And they have left little breadcrumbs along the way and little brown cupcakes. And it just makes me crazy. It just absolutely makes me crazy. And so rather than go to Crazy Town, I think, what's the better thing to do? Because I have options, right? I could step over, I could reach into my pocket because I pretty much always have plastic doggy bags on me. It's like the parents who always have wet wipes and diapers with them if you have children. I always have puppy baggies. So anyway, I could step over, I could pick it up and throw it away. There's always more options. So this morning, and this is not like how great I am kind of thing. This morning I decided I'm just going to pick it up and I'm going to throw it away, and I'll feel better about my life and all the world and the sidewalk and the humanity and all that other stuff. So what I noticed, just by doing such a simple little thing, I felt better. I didn't do my whole walk with the dog thing, cursing out everybody that walked before me. Because the truth is, I'm making all that up. It's all in me that somebody didn't do something this way or that way or blah, 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 blah. See, if there's a design to the universe, and I believe there is a design for the universe, because this is a universe of magnificent order and beauty. It's always really interesting to know that scientists say that if the Earth was 1 mile closer or 1 mile further from the sun, it would be impossible for life to exist here as we know it. So there is a perfect design unfolding here. And if that's happening on Earth, it must be happening in each of our lives as well. And it's kind of like a child's view of the world, like maybe a preschool view of the world, that if we have a relationship with God, nothing I don't want will ever happen. That's not true. I think the more mature relationship is whatever happens, I will be able to be moving through this because I'm working with a principle, a power, and a presence that's within me. And so I am not alone. I'm working in partnership with this divine activity. So if I asked you this morning, say, to think about, very quickly, name the last 10 presidents in order. Or how about the last 10 Miss Universes, right? Or how about the last 10 Nobel Prizes for literature? Or the last Super Bowl, last 10 Super Bowl people, right in order, right now. Well, we might not have all of that. And don't use your phone, because that doesn't count. But if I asked you to name 10 people in your lifetime who have really touched your life in a significant way, in a way that your life was never the same because they shared part of the journey with you, I know that you would be able to come up with those 10 people very quickly. And if I asked you to say very quickly in your lifetime, who have been the 5 best friends that you've ever known, you would be able to come up with that, because that's really personal. And if I said to you, who are the 3 people in your life from the time that you were born into this earthly life to where you are today, who are the 3 people you think that have made the biggest difference in your life, you would have those names. It might take you a minute or 2 to get those names, because you forget about something and then bring it back to memory, but you would have those names. See, I think we would have no trouble remembering them because they touched our life in a really significant way. And if they did, at least in those moments, then I believe that they too were partnered with something greater that we call God, Spirit, divine intelligence. So a minister I know told this story about a woman and her mother-in-law. It was her mother-in-law who really, really loved God. Now the mother-in-law passed, and a person got up at the memorial service to speak, and who had been really touched by this woman, and it was her son. And so one of the things, and so he shared from his childhood memories and events, and one of the things that she had done was, she read to him from the Science of Mind textbook when he was very little. And I thought that was just fantastic. But in the course of his life, he was an individual who lost his way, like so many of us do. We just lose our way at different times. We forget what we're here to do and where we're headed. So this particular man, he lost his way. And he got seriously into drugs and alcohol. And he stole from his family, including the mother and the grandmother. His wife left him. He lost his job. He had no place to live. He was in his car. Now he still had a cell phone, and that's where he got his messages. And so he got a call. He got a call, and the message says, I know you've done some bad things, but that doesn't make you a bad person. I love you. Now come home. And of course it was his mother. And she wasn't saying just come home to our house, but come home. Come home. And you know what that did? That did affect something so deep in him that she loved him, you know, and she was inviting him back into the fold, regardless of the dumb stuff that he'd done. And really, we've all done dumb things and made bad choices. But that stirred something in him. And he called his sponsor and he went to a meeting, all because she was partnered with God. So I think it takes a spiritual foundation of daily practice for us not to indulge our fears, not to get up, and not to get caught up in the negativity around us, to remind ourselves that I don't have to do this alone, because in truth, I am never alone. And the truth of each and every one of us is right now, where you are, just as you are loved and you are enough. And so it is.
So it is. So it is.
So let's just turn our attention inward for just a moment and just be still and remember the spiritual truth that God is right where we are, that each and every one of us, we are emanations of the Most High, that spirit, consciousness, love, and intelligence within us is the most true, real thing about each and every one of us. And so in this awareness of our connection with God, with spirit, with truth, I also know that we are all connected with each other on the unseen side of life. That in the mind and the heart of God, there is only one, and we're all it. So I speak the word for each and every one of us. knowing that as we move forward in our life, that we are truly partnered with God, partnered with Spirit, that we are not going through any of what we go through alone, that there is a principle, a power, and a presence at our disposal. And I claim for us today that we make great, intelligent, loving use of this power. Like Ernest Holmes said, there is a power for good in the universe, and you can use it. And we do. We use it creatively and constructively and lovingly and intelligently. And I know that each and every one of us, for each of us, healing is taking place wherever that healing needs to be. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, in every area of our life. And so we include in our prayer this morning our family members, our parents and children, all those that we love and hold dear. And we remember that God, that truth, that divine intelligence, wisdom is right here and where everyone is. That they are surrounded and they are filled with an infinite loving presence, just as we are. And we let our prayer be a blessing in the world that we live in. So all of those things that grab at our attention, all of those opportunities to reconcile our faith, we say Spirit is right there. Truth is being revealed. And it's being revealed as harmony, as all needs met, as peace, as new beginnings. And I claim this is the truth. We bless our church. We bless all churches everywhere. Synagogues, temples, mosques, and ashrams, all paths to God. And I'm certain that we're blessed by being together today, that there is a raising up, that there is a healing for everyone. And we say yes to it. We welcome it. And so with an open, gracious, full heart, I give thanks that this is the truth. Right here, right now. It could not be any other way. And I release this word. Together we all say, and so it is.